Well, shalom, everybody. This is Universal Truth of Mankind. I am Dave, your host, and welcome to the core group discussion. This is number two of a two-part that we did about the camps of Israel in reference to the Zodiac. Um, if you want to partake in these type of discussions, by all means, contact us, and we'd love to include you. We're a very open, tolerant group, and would love to have others to join us to thrash out ideas and concepts and so forth. That's what we do here. We all come to the table and offer our understanding from the research that we've done. So please let us know. You look at the descriptions below, and you'll see a email link. Just go ahead and email. Take care, everybody, and enjoy. Okay, this is what we were talking about last week. This is a summary
Okay,
because
doke.
because I did 3 slides and I added to it.
Hmm.
What Ross and I were discussing is that the first portion within Numbers talks about the 12 tribes of Israel in a very specific order. And Kabbalists and students of Kabbalah tell us that it's really associated to the Zodiac. So what I done is I put the camps of Israel onto the chart here. And for each tribe, I associated the the specific constellation that's attached to that tribe. So you can look it up. The only exception was Levi. Levi's purpose is simply to bring light into the picture. Bring God's light. That's all it was for. That's their purpose. They're the purifiers of the faith. They are the ones that are to um, strengthen Israel and to lead Israel into a better relationship and connection with the Creator. That's the purpose, period. They are not associated to any part of the zodiac. However, when we take a look at ancient civilizations, Chichen Itza. I've gone there. That's a Mayan area. The Aztecs, and even going before them, going to various parts of the country, world like Africa, North America, South America, Central America, Europe, Asia, um, and so on and so forth. You find that the zodiac was very important. And as a result, all these civilizations spoke about them, studied them, and also observed them. They had their own little, you know, viewing quarters, towers, and stuff to see where they were at. And they used this as a means to discover, okay, when are these beings going to visit us? When should we plant our plants? When should we plant the fields? When should we harvest the fields? When should we expect the sun, the shortest day, the longest day, and so on and so forth? But they also use as a means to discover, you know, that particular month, what kind of impact are we going to have, or what kind of impact it's going to have on us. And so this has been extremely important and followed in a very religious manner. It's the word religion is not what I'm looking for. I'm sorry. Very strict manner, very tedious. So, I mean, take a look at the what do you call that? Stonehenge. They think that had to do with the calendar. So that was 5,000 years old, or if not more. They think it's at least 5,000 years old. So man's always been trying to stay on top of that. So I find it interesting that the 12 tribes are associated minus Libra, sorry, it's Libra, minus Levi, to be associated to a specific constellation. So Ross and I were discussing this and learning that, hey, are each of the tribes there to battle a particular thing, or are they supposed to absorb the energy from it and bring it into the camp, and so on and so forth? So went a little further And here's the 12 tribes, 12 months. First, we had the 12 months, then we had the 12 constellations, and then the 12 tribes. They're all in exact order that's presented within Numbers, the beginning of Numbers, the first portion of Numbers. So we know they're all associated. But, a lot of people say, hey, you're trying to follow the devil, the demons are after you, all this stuff. And and these constellations are supposed to have an influence on you or on us. And the reality is that um, they do have an influence on us. And we're supposed to overpower that influence. And we know that because we're taught that, Abraham was the first person to put himself over and above the influences of the zodiac. All right. Tom, any questions while I'm going through this?
No, I'm just there's a picture that's emerging inside of me here, and I'm wondering. I noticed the north, south, east, and west, and the tribes that were located in the north, the tribes that were located in the east, in the south, and in the east and the west. And I'm wondering if that relates to the overall sense of the tzimtzum, the contraction, the void, and the connections with the aspect of Hashem that normally that would be mitigated, through these specific tribes on each of these directions on a cosmic level. That's the only picture I had. Just a thought.
You're making me think because I felt like you were crossing over a couple of borders there from the spiritual to the metaphysical and then to the physical. What the Zitzum's are all about contractions. Obviously, the whole idea of the contractions built time into the picture.
Yeah.
It built boundaries and various filters to look at creation is. I think that's going to go beyond what we're actually talking about. So
Hmm. Okay.
that would be another discussion, but definitely is important. So just keep it in mind, Tom. It may draw out to be something else as we go on. So
Sure. Sure.
so we have all this. Then we talked about Tikkun because the reality is
Yeah.
these constellations impact the world, the collective of all individuals. It will impact tribes or nations or cultures,
Hmm.
and it will impact individuals. And so the idea is to cocoon, to collect, to get a connection with the creator. So how do we do that? Why is it important to notice these constellations? Well, the creator created these constellations. So yeah, they would or they could have an influence on us. But what I'm discovering is that the constellations were not there to influence us, but rather for us to be prepared to influence the constellations or to null and void the constellations. Talk about like the negative aspects. Obviously, we want the positive ones, but we don't want to take on the negative ones either. So I decided to take another step. And so what I did was I looked at it, said, okay, are these zodiacs looking to influence from the outside in towards tabernacle? But yet the Levites are not associated with any of the constellations, any of the part of the zodiac. So well, that can't be
Hmm.
right then. It can't be a situation where the zodiac's influencing the tribes and then influencing the Levites. So I realized that the picture really needs to look like this. Has to be an outward situation because the
Oh, of
Levites'
course.
purpose
And
is to give us light. The light is from the Creator. And after all, when you take a look at the tabernacle, it had the pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. So that was the source for all of Israel. So we are to be a light to the nations. So this is an outward situation. This is coming through the tabernacle and going to the north, south, east, and west and pushing out
sure.
to the nations. So it's not to influence us, but rather we are to influence it. So since all the nations are so interested in the power of the zodiac. We aren't. We're looking at saying, our creator created the zodiac. Our creator has authority over the zodiac. The zodiac has no impact upon us. So this is the reverse of what we were looking at, the reverse of what I was initially thinking. And then as we go out to the nations and we show the people that, hey, don't worry about Taurus. Don't worry about Cancer. Don't worry about this or that. Oh, well, you don't seem to be worried about, and you're successful, right? Oh, then your God must be God. Now, how does God prove that he's God unless he has some contrast to look at? So the zodiac is a contrast to God. So God put these things into the universe so he can be revealed. And that's what we're seeing here. So they would go out, being influenced to people, and then this would occur. The people from other nations would come in, and they come in through the corners. And they stay there for a period of time. I've heard someone say a year. I don't know, could be a year, I'm not quite sure. And then they would be assigned to a particular tribe. Don't know how that was done. So they would come in through the corners. You know, we read about how the nations will hold on the fringes of an Israelite, on the fringes. So that's how they enters through the fringes. And here, this is the corners. That is a big talit right there. Not only is the tabernacle, when we put a talit on, it's our personal mishkan, but it's also a microcosm of the entire picture of Israel as well, with the 12 tribes and the directions. So when we face east, then our left is north, our right is south, and the backside is west.
Ooh, ooh, that presents a problem.
Why? Let's hear it.
You've got Benjamin positioned at the west,
That's
but
correct.
the name literally means son of the south.
It means the favored one.
Son of the south. Son of my right hand.
Right. Okay. Think about that for a moment. It means favored one. If you were to face east, is not Benjamin on the right side?
No, he would be to your back.
No, on the west side. Okay, if you take a look at west and you're facing east, is Benjamin on the south side, the right side? He is.
I'm not following.
Okay. What we need to do is, I know where you're going with that, and this is something I recently learned also. The reason why we have three tribes on each of the sides is because there's three columns for each side. In other words, if let's say you look at east and you're facing east, your left is Zebulon, your right is Issachar, and the center is Yehuda. Now, when you go down to the west side and you're still facing east, then Benjamin's on your right side, Manasseh's on your left side, and Ephraim's in the middle. So in other words, on each of the sides, you have a left, right, and middle.
All right. From that perspective, he would be to the south.
Yes. Yes. And that's a good point. That's a real good point you bring up. But yes, it's son of the right hand, which obviously is south, is what we're talking about. So yeah, so he has a connection to the southern tribes. Benjamin is a connection to Simeon, to Reuben, to Gad. So these are not, I know we view them as being separate encampments, but from a spiritual perspective, they're all interconnected. Does that help?
Okay. I'm envisioning what you're saying,
Mhm.
but I'm also seeing another level, if you will, or a
That's
different aspect.
that's great. Go.
Okay, you initially were showing the four arrows in from the four cardinal directions.
Yes, let me go back on that for you. That
That that would represent an energy flowing in.
correct.
Okay, and those would be unarguable influences, both positive and negative. If you were born under a particular sign, whether it be Virgo, Sagittarius, whatever,
Yes. Yes.
you will display those aspects in your life. There's no argument on that. Certain individuals born at specific times display certain traits.
Yes.
There is negativity that goes with that,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that may be, but that's each individual's responsibility to turn those negatives either into positives or just nullify them so that they become neutral.
Correct.
But it can't be just a one-way energy. It has to turn around and flow back out. Energy is not unidirectional. It's a constant vortex, out and in, out and in. It's always in motion.
Yes, and keep that in mind for a second, what you just said, because I'm actually getting to that.
Okay.
So it comes into the corners. So in other words, let's just say for sake of argument that the outside is negative energy.
Potential.
We
Correct.
figure, okay, the nations are influenced by the zodiac. They're influenced by their observance of the various constellations accordingly. And it's probably without God, it's probably more of a negative situation versus a positive situation. Just take that for an argument for the moment. So with the Levites, it transforms it, and the tabernacle, it means it's going outwards. So there's supposed to be a positiveness going outwards to the nations. And then Israel shows that it is of God and that God actually exists, because now the nations see the contrast. They see the difference between the two, the positive and negative. We'll just use that term for the moment.
That's part of the polarity.
Yes. Then that means, oh, I want to be with God. So they join Israel by coming in through the corners. And we end up with this, a Taurus, where there's a constant exchange coming in, going out, coming in, coming out, coming in. This shows me that Israel, from a spiritual perspective, is not just about a physical people, but it's about a a people at a metaphysical level, at a physical level, are seeing coming back to Israel, because the influence, the positive influence of Israel to the world, and showing who the creator is, so the people will come in. The purpose is for Israel to accumulate and become a great nation, not out of just the sons of Jacob for Israel, but also by bringing the people of the nation, the roots, the Rahabs, into the picture. And the 32 um, fighting men of David, coming from all these different other nations, coming into the fold. This is true salvation.
That would seem to be a fulfillment of the expansion and compressive nature of the two positive of the polarities that Ross is talking about. Because when you look at from the center, you can see the Tav, and that is a reflexive energy that goes from Tav all the way back to Aleph, and from Aleph to Tav. I'm sorry, I
The
just went
beginning and
into
the end.
hopping. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. So you see how this whole camp of Israel is an organism. It's a living, breathing organism. It inhales, it exhales, it inhales, it exhales, and it's bringing the people in to the fold.
But
It's
yes, and it's not intended to be on a physical level. It is all intended to be on a spiritual level.
yes,
And that's where the problem comes. If we don't keep it purely spiritual and we begin to look at the physical, that's where it collapses. You understand what I'm saying?
explain a little more.
Okay. If this is a spiritual encampment wherein the ideology is love, harmony, peace, unity, balance, sharing. Okay.
Mhm.
That is your constant mental attitude, which should be your or your spiritual expression. Okay. That should be your personality. Balance, tikkun. Okay. Tikkun 101, tikkun with the world, with the encampments, the people. That is the ultimate, utmost objective. It's a state of mind
Right,
that causes a state of being.
right. If you get to proper state of mind, then your actions will reflect that.
But when your eyes look and see
Hmm.
a red turban, a little white kippah, long hair and a baseball cap, then there's where your division, your judgment, why you dress like that, you start to get into the physicality of things and you lose that harmonious balance because at this point you become selfish to a degree. We all need to dress alike. We all need to
Hmm.
whatever. Okay, on a physical level, roosters all crow at 4:30 in the morning. So don't be a chicken, right? Um, the physicality is the hardest part to overcome. If you can't get past your eyes, you can't get to that state of mind, which causes a state of being. It's not about what somebody looks like. The one of the best expressions for it is good thoughts, good words, good deeds.
Correct.
Okay? If we can all function on that level, whether it's a cowboy hat, a red turban, a red dot in the middle of your forehead, earrings out to the wazoo, who gives a crap? It's the harmony, the balance, the unity, the sharing, the camaraderie, companionship. I don't care. If you don't live in that state of mind, in that state of being, then everybody just shuck off back to your
Mhm.
corners and we'll start all over.
Well, yeah, the way I look at it is when we look at the tree of knowledge of good and evil, is the word evil is not really, to me, a good translation of the word. Because the Hebrew word is ra, it's resh ayin, and it means primarily the eyes. So we're talking about the five senses. That's so we're judging, we're working, we're um, we're using the five senses as our only judgmental things, where Tov is really like the essence. We're not looking for the essence of the person. We're trying to understand them. So in a sense, we're using our five senses as a means to judge others, to understand others. And that's strictly in the physical realm only. We're not looking at people in the metaphysical, the physical, or the spiritual level of who they really are.
Right.
So
I've come to understand that these texts, blessed are the blind, for they shall see.
mm, mm,
That is not a physical statement.
yes, that's correct.
Blessed are the lame, for they shall walk.
The poor,
What about the poor? What does it say?
says, blessed are the meek, the poor. But it's not
Because
because they're poor in the physical realm is what they're talking about. In other words, they're not interested in the physical realm. They're interested in a higher order of things. They're interested in the metaphysical. They're interested in spiritual things.
exactly. So the difficulty becomes when people start thinking again in this physical realm. Well, how is it a blind man can see? It's got to be a miracle.
Yeah.
Third eye, Bubba. Third
Yes.
eye.
Third eye. That's correct.
And he constantly says, there are none so blind as those who have eyes but will not see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ears but will not hear.
Here. Mm-hmm.
Like, you guys are the most wretched of all. Anyway, it's just, I think there's a balance between trying to not over spiritualize some things and not over physicalize or bring too much of it into physicality. Oh, man, there is so much, but I'm going to stop here. This is your show. Go.
Oh, no, I am pretty much done with my slideshow here. And Tom,
Comment. I keep seeing the image of the Simpson and the cob that comes in and penetrates, and I'm wondering if in your illustration, if that isn't an illustration, because you got the bob is 6 plus 6, which equals 12. And are we looking at a penetration on all levels in the complete circular existence of everything that's created and the energies that manifest through each and every one of these tribes from the north to the south to the east to the west? And I'm wondering about the positioning of the tribes in the Tanakh, and if there's something there spiritual that's flowing into and getting right to the heart and the center of things. Toward, I don't know. These are just some silly thoughts, but I'll leave it at that.
well, I guess in various ways, yeah, why not? Why can't they be part of this picture? I mean, we're looking at a picture with our eyes here.
Yeah.
It's two-dimensional. You can see a three-dimensional into it for sure. But this is obviously only a tip of the iceberg.
On the
Yeah.
Simpson, whenever you're done.
Yes. Oh yeah, I'm done. Thank you. I've got kids running back and forth here, so I'm going to put me on mute, but I'll respond when I can.
I can't hear them, but the idea of contracting so that everything else can expand around this contraction, is that what I understand how this is being conceptualized?
That's what Tom's saying. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yes, that
Okay.
there's an expansion contraction type situation. Yes. Yes.
Well, can the contraction be completed though if it doesn't have these four directions and all of these tribes and in Hashem's energy that's flowing through all of these tribes to really, complete the whole aspect of not Simpson, but the torus, the toroidal movement. I mean, it in and out type of a thing, contraction, expansion. I'm just wondering if those strong forces aren't actively being manifested well, I don't know.
Well, if you can't breathe out and
Anyways,
if you can't breathe in and out, you can't breathe and you suffocate. So yeah, you have to do the both. So to become the camp of
so would
Israel, yes.
would would the Levites then be the expansive aspect, and then those on the outside be the contractive aspect?
What the Levites are there to bring in that life, that positive, the healing, the wisdom, and so forth to share with the people in the tribes so
Mm-hmm.
that the tribes can go out to the
Sure,
world.
sure,
It's not
sure.
the Levites not going directly to the world. It's like Zebulon are known to be, I think it's Zebulon, are known to be they had the ships of Israel. Um they would be the merchants of Israel. They would go
Mm-hmm.
out to
Mm-hmm.
various countries, continents, and so on and so forth, and do trade. So they would influence people through their actions.
Uh-huh.
Asher made wine, from what I understand. It's one of their primary products was wine. That's a
Mm.
way to get to people. Hey, you want some wine? Yeah. You know, all these
Yeah.
tribes had their specialties, and the Benjamites were known as the warriors of Israel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, anyways, I didn't mean to throw any
Oh no,
heady type of a thing in there, but I keep getting these images of this breathing, expansion, and contraction, and going outward and inward, and it just seems like it's pulsating. It feels like it's pulsating to me.
well,
Um,
you could
it's a
also look at
beautiful,
you could
beautiful
all
thing.
you could look at it this way too, to go a little bit beyond this, is that you probably were thinking at some point saying, well, what does the north, the south, the east, and the west represent? Well,
Yeah.
the east represents Teferet, beauty, harmony, balance.
Hmm. Hmm.
The middle.
Hmm.
The north is Gebarah, which is the judgment. The south is
Hmm.
Chesed, and the west is Malkut. Those are the four Sephiroths that are being represented here.
Hmm.
And it's up to us. No, these four Sephiroths are what's being activated here. So in other words, you have the judgment and the mercy. The mercy and the judgment come together and they become balanced under Teferet. Then the Teferet, which represents their Anpin along with the world, Malkut, get together and they create a balance with them too, and they become that's a connection from from the spiritual down to the physical.
It's a real profound picture here. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. With so much depth, like Ross was saying,
Yes.
there is just a lot here. Wow.
And it's interesting, like he was saying, oh well, I thought Benjamin's son of the South because it's the right hand, and I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he is on the south side. He's on the southwest side or the west south side, whatever you want to call it. But the southwest is where he is. So that Benjamin is the connection from the west to the south. Like like Gad is the connection to Issachar from the south to the east, and so on and so forth. And then we got Zebulon to I'm sorry, I'm sorry, let me restate this. You got the left and rights all connecting. You literally could build a star out of connecting all these things.
Hmm. Hmm.
So each side has a balancing point, a left and right and balance point, and then they're all interconnected. And supposedly the Star of David, really, when you take a look at it, it represents 12, not 6. You say, oh, it's a triangle. There's 3 sides to each. Well, what about the points? It's actually 12. And it's been noted that by some that the Magen David, the Star of David, actually represents the 12 tribes. So if you throw the Magen David over, just go, oh, I'm starting to see connections. But so short of the whole thing is that the Zodiac is, yes, an influence. We look at the Zodiac. I've been studying the Zodiac, and here's basically what it says, more or less. This particular constellation or Zodiac has an influence on people to do this or to do that. But it's like everything else. Is nuclear fission good? Yes. Is it bad? Yes. If you use it for energy, it's a good thing. If you use it to make a bomb, it's a bad thing. It's what we do with it that makes it good or bad. So through the influence of the tabernacle, through the influence of the Levites, the tribes, which have an association to a particular constellation, can turn all the influences into a good influence for the world to see, versus the world, which is more like, we're just going to blow with the wind, where Israel, or let's say the tribe of Dan, says, no, this is what the attributes of Capricorn are, and we're going to do nothing but good with it. And then the world's going to see, oh, we've been worshiping Capricorn, and we've been influenced by Capricorn. Oh, I see, Capricorn is not God. I see your God is God. So let me come in and learn more. And there you start your breathing process. Learning is a breathing process. So it falls right in there with Ross, what Ross was talking about.
Well, I want to pick up on the Zoom. Go back to that if
Oh,
I
sure,
could.
sure.
The idea of the contraction, and conceptually, to me, that means coming to an infinitely small point in the very center of all of the other expansion in all directions, 360 degrees from that center.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And on the one hand, that would indicate, or maybe it brings to my mind anyway, a layer of separation, if you will. And
Okay.
to me, that's like impossible to an extent, because this is simply just my mental construct. If God, and I'm only using the term to help because of the familiarity of the language, is everything, all energy, love, right? I mean, everything emanates from this entity that we refer to as God. And that means every frequency, which involves every spectrum of sound, light, whatever. In essence, he is responsible for all that is. No one disputes that. Agreed so far?
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Okay, so what we have to understand, are either of you vaguely familiar with the studies of electricity or magnetism?
Hey, Sparkus. Well, yeah, to a certain extent, I had in my science classes and stuff in school.
Okay.
Somewhat. I'm not a
Well, when you're
I'm not an
looking at
expert. I'm aware of it.
when you're looking at the flow of the magnetic field or an electric field, you're familiar with a direction or what they consider to be the direction of the energy, right?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to determine that is through a vector. You take a small sampling of that field and measure the current, if you will, whether it's electricity or magnetism, to determine the direction of that field of energy. Also correct?
Sure. The vector is magnitude and direction.
Correct.
It's the definition.
So, in a sense, we can only describe, react to, function, and operate in our vector. Anything outside of that vector, we generally tend to speculate until we have some way of measuring. Agreed?
Well, I'm just wondering if you have vectors with magnitude and direction, and you have the opposite of magnitude direction, can you really have an opposite of magnitude direction? In other words,
Energy does not flow in one direction only.
no, I understand. What I'm saying, magnitude. Okay, you just keep going. I'm getting too caught up in definitions. Keep going.
I'm just simply saying that in our vector, we realize that magnetism has polarity, north and south. Electricity, negative, positive.
Right.
Okay, so energy is always in a constant state of motion, and it is always reciprocal.
For
It's
every
just
action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. Is that what you're saying?
correct.
Okay.
So, on the one hand, that tells us that we do not live in a static environment. If we were, we would just be nothing but a drawing on a piece of paper, and that's it. You with me?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so because space exists, so does time, and because time exists, so does space. Space-time are definitely interconnected. The only way to measure distance is through time. Time is a construct that we have. It does not, it's all relative, as Einstein said, because time is relative to where you are in space, which means vector, so to speak. Also agreed?
Okay.
If I were in Sydney, Australia right now, I'd be 17 hours ahead of you, 16. Same planet, right? The only thing that really is different would be my vector.
That's kind of interesting. It's true. We would be ahead, or yeah, there'd be a time difference of 16 or 17 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But the motion that that person's doing in Sydney, let's say that they're getting up, they're going to go and eat something.
Mm-hmm.
For us, is happening right now.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
And if we do the same thing, it's happening to, in their perspective, it's happening right now. And yet there's 17-hour difference between us. That's relative, all right.
Well, it's 9:15 p.m. in Israel.
Yeah,
Some people are already going to bed. I haven't even had lunch yet.
true.
Mm.
So what I'm trying to say is we have to understand, and going back to what you were saying, David, is nuclear energy good or bad? It is all, it exists. It's just what is that individual's intent?
Correct.
And we've covered this on an individual level. Words are just words, but you can abuse them, or unpleasant words versus pleasant. And I'm beginning to understand why older English, and some other cultures also don't necessarily have specific words similar to what we have in English. Old English would be pleasant, unpleasant, agreeable, disagreeable.
Well, we even monkeyed with the words. For instance, we say worship.
Yep.
Now, worship in many, we have a definition for it, but when we hear the word worship, it has a somewhat of a sanitized, ambiguous meaning,
Mm-hmm.
somewhat. But if you look at the Old English word, it's worthship. Now all of a sudden it makes sense. What do you worthship? What's of value to you? What is of value to you is what you worthship. And it's like, now I get it.
Right.
That's it.
You would tend
Yeah.
to treat something more favorably
Mm-hmm.
if it is beneficial.
Right.
But we perverted that. Oh, they worship this little god. And I'm like, no. They were recognizing the benefit of this particular aspect.
Right. Well, I had a major revelation many years ago from a Hindu friend of mine where I saw him with a picture of an idol. I said, "Oh, it's an idol." He says, "No, no, no, no." He says, "You don't understand." I said, "Okay, well, I'm willing to hear." And he says, "That's not an idol. We don't worship the idol. That's just a piece of stone or wood or whatever, plaster. We don't, that's not what it is. It's there to give us a physical reminder of what we're trying to focus to. In other words, we're not focusing on I mean, it's a worthless thing. It's just we use it as a means to help us to focus onto our God. And I was like, oh, all right, I can see that. I can, I can fathom that.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't looking for the idol to speak. They weren't looking at the idol having any kind of power or strength, but rather it's like using sound, like you use it like Ross, you were talking about this 110 hertz for meditation. You're not worshiping the frequency. The
No.
frequency is aiding you in that meditation, the worship.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, okay, we quite interesting. All right.
Sure. It's just, like we've
Now,
perverted the definitions.
now I will tell you this, that if you take a look at the Sephirots, especially the lower seven, so let's just stick with, for the moment, the lower six, minus Malkut. And so we got Kesed, Gevarah, Teferet, we got Nitzach, Hud, and then Yesud. And what's you could look at it as expansive, contractive, expansive, contractive, expansive, contractive. Kesed basically is where God is totally open, totally accepting of us. And we can only receive that if we're willing to be open, if we are willing to be um, um, he'll freely give to you if you freely um, be forthright and honest with God. Like Israel. Israel means direct to. It means it's an honesty situation. You can receive that abundance. So that's an expansive kesed. And then Gevarah is restrictive, so that's a contractive. Then you bring the two together at Tiferet. Now you got a balance between the two. So it's sort of like a neutral, like a neutral type situation. And then you got Nitzach, which is expansive. and then you go to Hud, that's contractive, and then you go to Yesod, and that's a balancing point, a neutron, a neutral area between the two, where the two come together to become a benefit. So you have that breathing type of a concept where we would breathe in, inhale, hold, and then release. That represents all three states.
It's also a pulse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tom, I heard you think something. What was it?
Oh, he's always thinking.
I heard him think that. What was it, Tom? What were you thinking? I heard it.
I'm not sure what you're referring to right now, but yeah, uh, I'll ponder it for a minute here. I'm in the middle of trying to fix something to get into my system here to eat, but
Oh,
I'll respond if I think of it. How's that sound?
Okay.
okay.
Are you there? I'm
Yes.
gonna mute here so I don't disturb. I'm listening intensely, so if I get it, I'll come back.
Okay. It'll come to him shortly.
More than
But
likely, yeah.
that's what I was going to earlier. It's just a constant pulse, pulse, pulse.
Yes.
Some
Yes.
of these
I
are
agree
at
with you.
some incredibly fast rates that it is
Well,
so difficult for us to fathom. Others are so incredibly slow, we would be impatient.
well, I kind of look at it this way. We had something called the freedom of choice. If we only had expansive, or we only had contractive, or we had only neutral, there would be no opportunity for freedom of choice. So you have to have that breathing thing, that expansive, contractive, the rest, expand, rest, or expand, yeah, expand, rest, contract, expand, or whatever. You have to have that in order to have opportunity to make decisions, to have that freedom of choice. So if we look at it from a worldly type of, not worldly in the sense of the physical, but world view in the sense of inclusive of everybody, then this picture we have in front of us is definitely an expansive contractive type situation.
Right. That is micro macro,
Yeah.
which is also as above, so below. Okay, whatever you're seeing in the big picture is just a macro of all of these micros, and any one of these micros is a reflection of the macros.
Yes. Exactly. Right. Right. That's right. So this is a universal picture right here.
And it's always dynamic.
And dynamic. Correct. So it's a very important concept to have in mind.
Well, that goes back to the breath picture. It
Yeah.
has to come in and out,
Well,
in and out.
look at it this way too. You know that most of us are mutts. In other words, none of us are pure Gentiles. None of us are pure Israelites. I'm talking about from a physical standpoint. We know that. Now, from a metaphysical, that's also true. So, in reality, all these tribes, including the Levites, from a spiritual perspective, metaphysical perspective, it's all part of us. We have all these attributes. So there you go. You got this at a spiritual side, you got this at a metaphysical side, and you got this at the physical side. All of this is
Well,
yes.
I had my flash.
I knew it was
Go,
coming.
go, go.
Well, and sorry about that. I'm trying to keep moving here and to keep my system up to snuff here. But the I was wondering if all of this starts with Adam Kadmon,
Adam Kadmon, yes.
and so everything that we're looking at is simply a holographic fractal image, a projection, a lower level projection of Adam Kadmon. Then that was my thought and question.
Well, you know,
Sure.
there's 4 different levels. Top level is absolute. They actually is Adam Kadmon,
Yes.
absolute, and then you got Bria, Yetzirah, and then Asiya are the 4.
Yes.
Actually, there's 5 levels, but the top level is really imperceivable. So that is the image we're created in. That Adam Kadmon is the archetype of man. But we're talking about a spiritual level, not a physical level. So, but then you work your way down each of those worlds. And I have to say that, yeah, this is part of that picture. Because
So then the
man would be, his head would be on the east side, his feet would be on the west side.
Yep.
The menorah would be, sorry, yeah, so you got the left and the right. And your showbread would be on the mercy side, which would be the south side. The north side was where the menorah would be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, wrapped around the tefillin, wrapped around the arm. Yehuda and the top side.
So
Go ahead.
so basically everything is just the expansion and contraction of Adam Kadmon then manifested in this particular dimension, and we look at the well, of course, it's the cob, it's the projection, it's the bob. It has to be, and it's expanding and correct. Oh, this is just it's blowing my.
You're looking at the same thing David saw when he. Oh, can you hear me? No, this is just like that Indian man who had that image on his wall. This is not it. It's just a means or a medium through which we go to get there.
Correct.
Yep. Yep.
And ideally,
cool.
Yep.
It's cool. Yep. I'm gonna mute. I'm just gonna mute you here, and I'll respond when I can. So I'm gonna mute me.
Well, let me see. We are at almost 12:30, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So we should probably close it up.
So I tell you, I can hardly sit still. I can feel the energy of this stuff. It's making me crazy.
No, it's fantastic.
And I'm sure there's so much more we can draw out of this too and relate to this picture. This is a picture where Hillel said while bouncing on one foot. Hey, you know, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. The rest is commentary. That's his picture right here. It's pictured right here.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
But it's pictured
beautiful.
It's pictured to the world, not to just a group of people.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
And let's face it, you said Adam Kadmon.
Awesome.
And then we had Adam in chapter 1. So who we're trying to rebuild in here? Adam. This is the salvation of all mankind.
That's right. What goes around comes around, right?
Yes. So we can't say, yep. We can't say, hey, you know, you're not included in this. No, everyone's included in this. You don't need a special insurance policy from a particular religion to be, you know, to be redeemed. No, it's just all of us. Okay.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Well, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Couldn't have done it without your slides.
Yes. So next week.
Wow, that's great stuff.
Next week, Ross, you can accumulate your material and let's go for it. Yeah. I don't want to, I'm not looking to dominate these things, but I had these slides and I had to get these concepts out. But
that's exactly what we agreed to last week.
Yeah. So
great stuff, guys. Great stuff. Sorry I missed it.
No, you didn't miss it. You came this week and you got to see the whole show.
Actually, you helped to pull a good part of this together too. So, you know, we were kind of at the end, kind of meandering a little bit because we didn't think everything through, but with you, and it kind of helped, synergize this whole picture. So really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Fun. Well,
Don't-
heck, I really appreciate you guys too. Thank you.
Alrighty. Well, everyone take care. Have a great week. And,
Yeah, thanks. You too.
And check out the videos
I said, yeah, darn right.
on YouTube and stuff. And free
All
flow.
right, guys, I'm going to head out. Love you guys.
You got it. Love you too. Take care. Shalom,
All
shalom.
right. Shalom.